Hello, you're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove, Kalergi. Today is June the 30th, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. This week, the BBC did an interview with the Dalai Lama where he made comments on the migration crisis by saying, quote, "Europe is for Europeans," and warning if too many migrants are allowed to stay, the continent could become Muslim or African. The Dalai Lama, who's been living in exile from Tibet since 1959 and is now aged 83, also said, quote, "European countries should take these refugees and give them education and training with the aim of returning them to their own lands." Such common sense, coming from a darling of the left, it must put them in a bit of a dilemma. Will they still attend the Free Tibet rallies on campus? Isn't it something that the Dalai Lama seems to be a defender of Christianity, whereas the pro-migration Pope wants to throw Christians to the lions? Allowing the entire world to enter Europe and other Western countries will disintegrate their culture and identities, and moving huge populations from one area of the world where they can't consume into another area of the world where they can only create its own problems, but also exposes the UN to be guilty of gross hypocrisy when you consider the carbon footprint associated with this. In Germany, lawmakers in the German state of Saxony want to pass new legislation, quote, "to take firm and effective action against those whose aim is to disparage the fundamental values of the European Union by way of attacking the reputation and its symbols of the EU. If passed, burning the EU flag will be a criminal offence punishable by a fine and 3-year jail term." And more from that canary in the coal mine, Sweden. A failed asylum seeker from Western Africa has been charged with multiple counts of sexual assault, but the prosecutor said that the alleged crimes are not serious enough to call for his deportation. The alleged assaults took place in a disco in Gotland that saw the man, who's in his 20s, sexually harass and assault several teenagers by touching their breasts and buttocks. The man came to Sweden in 2015, applied for asylum, but it was rejected in 2017 and has appealed the decision. It is ironic that a country dominated by a mostly female government has the worst rape problems in the Western world. In the recent increase in explosions, 2 this week, one which badly damaged a car and another thrown at a nightclub, the 10th explosion in the last 3 weeks, and bringing the total number of explosions to 103 this year so far, Malmo has sent out tips to its municipality workers on how to avoid the violence by email, such as plan your itinerary, including alternative routes, entrances and exits, and to be observant while leaving buildings, and to keep away from people who are threatening or dangerous. Stockholm Syndrome has now moved to Malmo. But whatever you do, don't ever address the issue that's the root cause of all of this. And Swedish government has passed new measures to increase pay for teachers working in the so-called no-go zones, and each teacher will receive a monthly increase of roughly 10,000 Swedish krona, or roughly €1,000, in an effort to get teachers to work in these areas. In October video I mentioned the number of crimes on teachers, including assault, stabbings, and I'm reminded of a quote of "those who feed the crocodile should not be surprised to get eaten." Denmark, a video of a Danish children being trained to perform a Muslim prayer has gone viral in Denmark, triggering strong reactions from politicians and ordinary Danes. In the video, a boy of African descent dressed in Muslim clothes demonstrates the Islamic prayer to a group of majority ethnic Danish children, with the female teacher who instructs the children to say Allah Akbar, whereupon the class kneel in prayer. The video was recorded by a Sudanese mother of one of the children and was not intended to be made public, but only for her later to upload it. The reaction was swift, with many calling for the teacher to be fired. The Danish People's Party member Martin Hendrickson had sent an email to the school demanding to know if the school had received consent from the children's parents, and if they had intended to teach about fundamentalism and Islam, and will the Muslim children in the school be taught the Our Father. The school headmaster admitted that the school has received many angry emails. Islam in Denmark is the country's largest minority religion, with an estimated population of over 300,000 people, or 5.3% of the population. In Italy, Interior Minister Matteo Salvini has sent 2 patrol vessels to stop a pair of ships with migrants on board from entering Italian waters. The ships, which were recently spotted near Malta, as he believed that the Maltese government would not act to stop them, with the captain deciding to try and break the blockade after spending 16 days off Lampedusa. Salvini said that, quote, Lampedusa and Italy needs tourists who pay, not illegal migrants whom we must keep. Despite being described as the Antichrist by a priest in the Vatican sermon last year, other members of the clergy have openly supported Salvini, with one describing him as, quote, a sensible politician trying to guarantee the safety and security of a nation, with another praising Salvini for talking about his Christian faith and holding a rosary beads, saying, quote, Christian signs are beautiful, both in private and in public, as we have almost lost our Christian identity. And now yesterday Salvini has cried victory in the standoff between the NGOs and the government after police boarded the Sea-Watch 3 vessel for disobeying orders not to dock in Lampedusa and arrested the captain Carola Rackett, aged 31, who he accused of being a criminal and a pirate, and during the boarding saw the captain of the Sea-Watch ram a small patrol boat with the vessel. Salvini tweeted out, Captain arrested and vessel impounded. It is my opinion that the captain was trying to create an international incident that could have yet again opened the floodgates for NGO-sponsored trafficking. I hope that these 2 Sea-Watch captains that get jail up to 20 years, but with the way that the European Court of Human Rights is now so anti-European, I'd say jail is highly unlikely. At least Salvini is aware of the border security and economic security and the importance of cultural security. And now for another story on moral inversion. A Scottish teenager aged 17 who was kicked out of a class for asserting that there are only 2 genders has been reportedly being suspended for 3 weeks. According to his friends, the teenager recorded his 3-minute exchange between him and his teacher, in which he recorded covertly and shared online to reveal the dangerous and unscientific indoctrination being presented to young and vulnerable children, and telling the children that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, a very dangerous thing indeed. And in the follow-up to the school in Greystones that will allow boys wear skirts and girls wear trousers, I played the interview of Gemma O'Doherty and the priest to my mum to see what she thought, and she couldn't have agreed more. Surely all this is only adding to the confusion faced by today's children, and that it is not just lazy parenting that wants to be a child's friend and not steer the child in the right direction. Should parents not be just as concerned about the food that enters the child's mind as it is with the food that enters the child's body? And the confusion can only lead to greater interference on the family by the Child Protection Agency, TUSLA, which already has a budget of over 800 million, has been involved in some controversial decisions, including bringing in 14 mostly Somali migrants from the Calais camp at a cost of €11 million, and have been accused by families of child kidnapping from vulnerable families, with a children's minister without children that has admitted to being a witch and wrote a book about witchcraft and was only elected on the 7 count. Is it not time for her to go, should Zapone be zapped? I have to say that the creepiest picture for me last year was a picture of not my Taoiseach Varadkar, Zapone, and Simon Harris, who was holding a smiling baby, all standing in a creche. That was something. I also met a lady during the week who told me that her brother has a child in that school in Greystones and that the 6th year class boys' toilet condoms are available. I wonder, has this practice happened in any other schools, and would any of my subscribers have heard of such similar things? I joined the protests outside RTE on Tuesday with Gemma O'Doherty and was delighted to meet Silver Fox, Walter Samuels, Ruthie, Brian and others. And during the week, Emmanuel Godson appeared on the Niall Boylan show, and I thought he was brilliant. He's like kryptonite to Sean, so I hope he'll be on more often. And I'm reminded of a quote from Churchill: "You have enemies, good. That means you have stood up to something sometime in your life." And on a more personal note, I'd like to add that today, 30th of June, is the 19th anniversary of the passing of my father, a man who I loved dearly, who was a role model and I looked up to, and very delighted to be his son, very proud to be his son. And he's the most knowledgeable man I ever met. And in fact, while he was in hospital, I visited him. He was able to tell me about the inaccuracies in the film Gladiator from his hospital bed. So he had an extraordinary wealth of knowledge, and he would probably have forgotten more than I'll ever remember. So I hope he would have been proud of me. So there are a couple of thoughts which are my own. Thanks for listening. Good night and good luck.